Hello and welcome to another video from Startup Division. A few days ago, I made a video on Luxottica, an Italian eyewear company who control majority of eyewear industry. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend that you do, as I talked a bit about the kind of monopoly Luxottica has, whose business model is quite similar to the company I'm about to talk in this video. The only difference is while Luxottica focuses on the eyewear industry, Berkshire Hathaway focuses on a diverse range of businesses. From candy production to regional electric and gas utilities. I would be leaving the link in the description down below. Do check it out. So today's video will be about a giant conglomerate which is too big to be even considered in the stock market indices, such as the S&P 500, Dow Jones, or the New York Stock Exchange Index. All of these indices takes into consideration the top 50 companies. Each of the companies in the top 50 has a different weightage, which actually contributes and makes up the index. Despite Berkshire's enormous size, it is not considered in the stock market index because there aren't many buyers because of its huge price tag, which is $257,000 as of today. Now, not only is Berkshire Hathaway humongous in size, it also has a long history, which is why I have divided the video on Berkshire Hathaway into two parts. The first part deals with the origins of Berkshire Hathaway and the period in which Warren Buffett took over the company. And the second part of the video, well, it deals with the period after Buffett has acquired and has complete control over Berkshire Hathaway. We will also talk about how he grew the company into a gigantic conglomerate it is today, but more of that in the second part of the video. Now, before we begin the video, it is interesting to note that Buffett never actually intended to acquire Berkshire Hathaway in the first place. We'll explain that in the later part of this video. We are going to take a deeper look into how Berkshire Hathaway was formed. So sit back and relax and let us take you on this wonderful journey of how Warren Buffett took Berkshire Hathaway to great heights. So to begin with, Berkshire Hathaway is humongous. It is huge. Just to give you a perspective of how big this conglomerate is, on December 31st, 2008, Class A shares of Berkshire Hathaway were selling for $96,000, making them the highest priced shares on the New York Stock Exchange. As of this date, the Class A shares of Berkshire Hathaway is trading at around $257,000. With a market cap of $400 billion, Berkshire Hathaway is ranked 6th, just behind Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook. So how did Berkshire Hathaway start, and who is the man behind this conglomerate? Now, many of you may know who this guy is. Often called the Oracle of Omaha or the Sage of Omaha, Buffett is noted for his adherence to the philosophy of value investing. He's also very frugal despite his immense wealth. You may find this an interesting fact that Warren Buffett is not actually the founder of Berkshire Hathaway. But did you know that the company existed for almost 100 years before Buffett was even born? Quite interesting, isn't it? Berkshire Hathaway is a name that, despite its vast wealth and immeasurable influence, most people don't actually know about it. This multi-billion-dollar conglomerate owns more than 50 businesses, including household names like Dairy Queen, Fruit of Loom, Duracell, and Gecko. there's more to it than just that. In fact, Berkshire Hathaway has a surprisingly interesting history full of odd decisions, some mistakes, a few lucky draws, and more than a little bit of common sense of its celebrity billionaire chairman, Warren Buffett. And it all started with two textile companies on the East Coast. Berkshire Hathaway began as a merger of several textile manufacturing companies. In 1839, Oliver Chase acquired and reorganized the Valley Falls Company in Rhode Island. The Valley Falls Company began acquiring many mills. Berkshire Cotton Manufacturing Company was founded in 1889 in Adams, Massachusetts. By 1917, the company became one of the largest cotton textile companies in the whole world. In 1929, Berkshire merged with Valley Falls Company and became known as Berkshire Fine Spinning Associates. Many New England textile companies failed during the 1920s and 1930s, but Berkshire Fine Spinning Associates survived the Great Depression intact and even prospered during and after World War II. At its peak in 1948, under the leadership of Malcolm Chase Jr., Berkshire earned $29.5 million and employed 11,000 workers at 11 mills. Now, both Berkshire and Hathaway will eventually merge to form Berkshire Hathaway. Now let us talk a bit about Hathaway Manufacturing Company. Hathaway Manufacturing Company was founded in New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1888 by Horatio Hathaway. In 1955, Chase Jr. organized a merger of Berkshire Fine Spinning Associates with Hathaway Mills to form Berkshire Hathaway. After the merger, Berkshire Hathaway, headquartered in New Bedford, Massachusetts, had 15 plants employing 12,000 workers with more than $120 million in annual revenue. By the end of the decade, 7 of those locations would have been closed, accompanied by a large number of layoffs. Needless to say, both Berkshire and Hathaway were successful in their original industry for quite a while before Buffett even arrived. After the merger with Hathaway, a man named Seabury Staton took the reins as chief executive of the combined company. Staton took Berkshire Hathaway to new heights, peaking around $120 million in annual revenue. But the industry itself was a dying one. In fact, by the end of the 1950s, Berkshire Hathaway had sold more than half of its mills and laid off a large number of workers. Many analysts wrote off the corporation as doomed and turned their attention to other avenues. But the company continued to limp along. Staton's background was centered in the actual industry of milling, the actual textile industry, rather than the complicated finances that came with running a huge corporation. But the falling prices in cotton and increased competition from both international and local companies made Berkshire Hathaway's future quite grim. In the early 1960s, Berkshire Hathaway had declined to just 7 plants and 6,000 employees, annually producing $250 million yards of material that sold for over $60 million. These assets and a sizable amount of cash on the balance sheet caught the attention of Warren Buffett, a little-known investor from Omaha, Nebraska. Buffett, who had founded Buffett Partnership Limited to make investments, started buying stock in Berkshire in 1962 at $7.60 a share. Buffett began to buy shares with the belief that the company's value was much higher than the current price indicated. According to interviews, he had hoped to sell them back at a huge profit. Staton, then CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, was about to strengthen his family's control of Berkshire Hathaway, the biggest textile manufacturer left in the downward sliding New England fabric industry. He agreed to pay $11.50 for each share owned by Buffett, along with the stock that other shareholders wished to sell at that price. But when the letter arrived with the official offer, Warren Buffett was surprised. The price was $11.37.5 per share, not the agreed upon $11.50. It was a $14,000 difference out of $1.275 million, 1/8 of a dollar per share. But the dollar amount wasn't the issue. Buffett was quoted as saying, "It really burned me up. You know, this guy was trying to chisel an eighth of a point from having, in effect, shaken my hand saying this was the deal." So furious Buffett ignored the letter, started buying as many shares of Berkshire as he could. By April 14th, 1965, Buffett owned or controlled enough shares to take over the company, and Staten knew it. The critical board of directors came on May the 10th. Buffett arrived with an attaché, and Staten called the meeting to order, read the agenda, and then resigned. But Buffett himself rose the actual accusation of Berkshire, saying it was a huge mistake to be so irritated with Staten's 12.5-cent discount offer that he decided to actually go on to acquire the company. Not only that, Buffett said he followed up a few years later with an even bigger blunder that cost today's shareholders an estimated $100 billion. From Buffett's perspective, the problem was buying Berkshire was that it was a bad company in the first place. Owning the company wasn't his plan. When he bought his first Berkshire shares on December 12, 1964, paying $7.50 each for 2,000 shares, at that time that the company was worth $19.46 per share, given its cash and the value of its real estate and other holdings. Buffett was actually trying to find a few puffs from what he viewed as a leftover cigar. The cigar butt concept came from Buffett's mentor, Columbia University teacher and investor Benjamin Graham. In his book, The Intelligent Investor and His Classes, Graham explained how to spot a company that was worth more than its stock price. Often such companies were past their prime, like mostly used up cigars, but something about them would yield a tidy profit if their shares were purchased at the right time and at the right price. In Graham's term, the profit was free puff which could be reinvested in the next deal. Berkshire was such a big company. It was a cash-rich company, but in a declining industry. Textile manufacturers were moving from New England to South, where the labor was cheap, but Berkshire was resisting the trend in 1960s. As the demand for its textiles worsened, Seabury Staten would close up plants, use that money to buy back company stock offered at a very attractive price. The buyback offer that Staten sent to Buffett would have given Buffett's partnership a 50% profit. Buffett was quoted as saying, "There it was, my free puff, just waiting for me, after which I could look elsewhere for other discarded cigar butts." But he couldn't overlook Staten's original $11.50 offer, and instead pursued the takeover, which he called childish behavior. By the time Buffett took over Berkshire Hathaway, it only had 2,300 employees with 2 operating mills. During the next few years, Buffett slowly began to move the company's base of operations to its new home in Omaha, Nebraska, and quickly began to seek out alternate forms of revenue. So what about the bigger mistake that followed, which Buffett says was the most costly move in his career? Well, we'll look at that in the second part of the video. So we will leave it right here, guys. If you did like the video, please do subscribe. Follow us on social media. We will be leaving the links down below. Send in your requests or comment below for any companies that you want us to make videos on. See you next time. you.